Alright guys, how's it going today? So we're going to be looking at a passage from Corinthians today that I find really interesting. But one thing I've learned before we take a look at the passage from Corinthians is one way you can really get a lot more depth from these letters in the Bible, the epistles, the New Testament letters after the four Gospels, is that you can get the context of who these letters were written to get a little bit more depth into them. So first we're going to take a look at it's a passage from 1 Corinthians, and we're going to take a look at what Corinth was like when Paul went there. So just read a little bit of this. So St. Paul brings Christianity to the turbulent historic city of Corinth. Leaving the sprawling, noisy, smoke-filled city of modern Athens on the road to Corinth recalls the Apostle Paul, who centuries ago embarked on that same journey. Its fruits, especially the great documents 1st and 2nd Corinthians today, are an integral part of our Christian faith. The Corinth which Paul traveled to was far larger and wealthier than its current namesake. Indeed, in that period, it outshone Athens in almost every sphere. Corinth's cosmopolitan character made it a model of the worldly cultures in which young Christianity had to confront. Paul helped define the new faith's response to the spheres of power and pleasure by bringing it into this place. Corinth was one of the most prosperous cities of ancient Greece. At the country's commercial and military crossroads, it used its harbors in both the Aegean and the Adriatic seas to control the line of communication in peace and war. Merchant shipping brought wealth to the city, whose pottery was the finest in Greece. The surfeit of riches encouraged widespread corruption and immorality. Corinth's first governor, Sisyphus, was a cunning and deceitful ruler. Subsequent leaders tended to be dishonest tyrants. Living as a Corinthian was an expression synonymous with leading a decadent and depraved life. Corinth's commercial success constantly challenged Athens in a strategic position. So, when we look at this last paragraph, we'll stop there. Living as a Corinthian, right? They had a lot of prosperity, and a lot of surplus, a lot of comfort. So when there's comfort and prosperity and surplus, human nature tends to indulge in sin, and just have a lot of free time. So one thing that you also get to kind of indulge in when you have a lot of free time and prosperity is the pursuit of ideas. The sort of, just intellectualism, considering ideas, which is not a bad thing. I do enjoy thinking, deeply about things and considering ideas, but with this a certain level, right, where you just get sort of lost in it. And that's the passage that we're going to take a look at. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, we're going to look at verse, I believe, 18 to 25. So Christ crucified is God's power and wisdom. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those of us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was placed through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Gentiles. But to those who God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. So I know for me personally, when I was younger, and you hear the story of Jesus being crucified, one of the places that my mind definitely went was, well, he's God, right? Why doesn't he just, get off of the cross and I guess destroy the people doing that to him and that sort of thing? But obviously, as we learn more, it's a lot deeper than that. There was a message that was meant to transcend time, right, through the last 2,000 years, that needed to be sent by God to kind of show people what love really is, and how to be self-sacrificial. And it's against human nature, right? But the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. And we just see right here, especially in verse 20, where's the wise person? Where's the teacher of the law? Where's the philosopher of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? Because, the message of Christ, right? It flips human nature on its head. Our self-preservationist flesh that wants to survive by any means necessary. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. And when we try to sort of understand Christianity from an intellectual perspective, we can get frustrated. We have to sort of take our hands off the bike handlebars a little bit and just let God help us understand. We can't just fully logically grasp these things sometimes, but we have to try to connect with God from the heart. So I think this passage is interesting because I'm sure that in Corinth there was some intellectuals, some really smart people in a IQ sense, but those people, I'm sure, were stumped by the message of Jesus, because often with intelligence comes pride, unfortunately, because you do have a high bandwidth, I guess, if you're intelligent, but then you can have a sense of pride because of that. And obviously we need to humble ourselves, because no matter who you are, God is more intelligent, right? And his ways are higher than our ways. So I just thought this passage, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18 through 25, is really interesting, and appreciate you guys listening.